What's up everyone? I hope you had a chance to watch because the first episode of House of the Dragon was a huge hit on HBO. The series opener garnered just under 10 million viewers and episode 2 went for the kill with 10.1. It's rare that the second episode has more viewers than the first, but this show is proving that it has the potential to be as good as the original Game of Thrones series, or maybe even better. We're going to be taking a deep dive in this pivotal episode that sets up a bunch of future storylines. First, this is your spoiler alert warning for episode 2, so if you haven't seen the first episode, go check out my episode 1 breakdown video, which I've linked to in the description. But before you click away, just be sure to click like and subscribe on your way out. There was no major bloodshed in this second episode, but there are already a ton of significant developments that I'm extremely excited to talk about. Be sure to watch to the end and see how many Easter eggs we caught in this episode. And welcome to TV Wow. If you're a new subscriber, make sure to use your Valyrian steel blade and slice that like and subscribe button. Be sure to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any future videos or Game of Thrones content. Let's jump right in, guys. Episode 2 starts off with a gruesome scene courtesy of the Crabfeeder. As mentioned in episode 1, Crag-Has-Trahar, known as the Crabfeeder, has brought together the Triarchy, which consists of an alliance between 3 free cities who are not governed by Westeros. While the Velaryon ships are being attacked, we see Lord Corlys taking a deep interest in them since he's the master of ships and has just lost 4 ships and more than a few men along the way. We also get to see a close-up image of the Crabfeeder wearing his mask, which brings us to our first Easter egg. By looking at his scarred face, it's pretty clear he's wearing a mask to cover up a deformity which looks suspiciously like grayscale. As many Game of Thrones fans know, grayscale is a life-threatening skin disease that was introduced through characters like Ser Jorah Mormont and Shireen in the original series. But while Crabfeeder probably suffers from grayscale, the reason why he's been given that nickname is not because he looks like someone fed his face to the crabs, but because he takes his enemies captive and crucifies them to wooden structures in the middle of beaches so crabs can come at high tide and feast on the unfortunate victim's flesh, leading to their untimely demise. Good stuff. We also get news that Sir Ryam, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, has passed away and Sir Harold Westerling has now taken over his duties. We've seen him become a sort of father figure to Princess Rhaenyra, especially since her relationship with King Viserys has been pretty choppy since Queen Aemma's death. Now this also means that a vacant position has opened up on the Kingsguard, which I'll talk about a little bit later. With Lord Corlys so frustrated about how he's losing men and ships, he recommends to the king that they should just go and take out Crabfeeder by force. One of the more disappointing things about King Viserys is that he's sort of a wimp when making rulings or decisions. There's been peace throughout the realms throughout his reign, so he feels that his job is to make sure that there's no violence and to continue that peace. Although I don't really blame him for his indecision, since the last hard decision he's had to make was to choose between his son or wife, which we saw didn't really work out for him in the first episode. One of the themes in this episode was taking action. Rhaenyra, even though she's been formally announced as the heir to the Iron Throne, still serves council members red wine. This is yet another Easter egg because it can be interpreted in a couple ways. For one, the most recognizable wine drinker in Game of Thrones was Cersei Lannister, who always seemed to be swirling a chalice of wine every time she's speaking with an air of authority or power. We can also draw that parallel because Cersei managed to become queen after making a bunch of bold and tough decisions, similar to what Rhaenyra is going to have to do undoubtedly in the future. Now, Rhaenyra craves to make decisions of her own and wants to send dragon riders to solve their issues. Unfortunately for her, King Viserys shuts her down and pretty much implies that they aren't going to take any of her recommendations seriously. Although, following this, and maybe because he feels a bit guilty, Viserys does decide to give Rhaenyra some important duties, and one of those is to appoint her responsible for filling the post of the empty position of the Kingsguard. Now, of course, as is Westerosi tradition, many of the pool of applicants are just people from affiliated houses and not warriors who have fighting or battle experience. But enter the charming and talented Criston Cole, who we met in the first episode, to save the day. Princess Rhaenyra, though clearly infatuated, makes the smart decision of choosing Sir Criston as he's the only one with actual fighting experience, as all good Kingsguard should have. Whether you believe Otto Hightower actually wants Alicent to comfort Viserys, or if he's just clearly selling out his daughter to the king, we see Alicent having her one-on-one talks with Viserys. Now, during these talks, they mention that Old Valyria used to have thousands of dragons, which is unfortunately no longer the case. They do share a moment, and Viserys pleads with her not to share their conversation with anyone. But of course, the king's body language and clear natural attraction point to the fact that he's interested in the young Alicent Hightower. Personally, I can't think of a worse rebound after your wife's death than your daughter's best friend, but hey, this is Game of Thrones. There's been worse. Now, the show does fast forward 6 months into the future, and we see Alicent and Rhaenyra in the Sept, which is another Easter egg. They talk about praying, and throughout the scene with Alicent, it seems like she wants to spill the beans about how she's been flirting with Rhaenyra's dad for half a year. But in the end, she decides not to say anything, which will undoubtedly come to bite her in the ass later in the episode. Personally, this brings back some memories of Cersei and Jaime Lannister and how they were in a crypt which collapsed on them both as a physical example and a metaphor of their relationship through the show. We can foreshadow a rift between Rhaenyra and Alicent as their friendship also seems to be leading towards collapse and will undoubtedly end tragically for the pair. Now we shift things back to Lord Corlys, as this is the first time we see him and his wife Rhaenys talking about how the crown is vulnerable. Rhaenys, of course, is the oldest cousin of King Viserys, who was previously passed on by the council as they instead selected a male to be rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms. Lord Corlys wants their daughter Laena, who looks like she's 10 years old, to marry Viserys. A very odd pairing considering Viserys could be her grandfather due to their age gap. Again, Game of Thrones. You know you love it. Now we come back to Viserys, whose ailment is starting to spread to other parts of his body. Last week it was his back oozing with yellow pus, and now it's his little finger that's purple and looking kinda dead. They put maggots on it to drain any bad blood, all the while he's talking to Otto, the Hand of the King. Of course, this is another Easter egg, as his pinky, or little finger as he calls it, is starting to die off. Littlefinger, or Peter Baelish, was of course a cunning and ruthless master of coin that had his hand in many different cookie jars belonging to those vying for the Iron Throne. This only leads me to wonder if someone is perhaps poisoning the king, which could be the reason for all of his ailments. As Viserys talks with the Grand Maester and Otto, the hot topic of the day was which child Viserys should take as his wife. In the next scene, we see little Laena talk to the king and attempt to seduce him, but her dialogue was pretty obviously scripted and she wasn't fooling anyone. Viserys, of course, sees right through this, and this only serves to push him further from Lord Corlys and closer to Otto's daughter, Alicent. Now up above, we can see Rhaenyra and Rhaenys watching the interaction between Laena and Viserys. This could be another possible Easter egg since they're both able to witness the conversation from a bird's eye view like two little birds, much like how the little birds were a network of spies who served Lord Varys, the former Master of Whisperers in King's Landing in the original Game of Thrones series. Both Rhaenyra and Rhaenys start to banter on how Rhaenyra wants to change the order of things as she becomes ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. But clearly Rhaenys knows all too well that it's a man's world in Westeros. Now, one of the most important plot points takes place when Viserys and Alicent share a moment after Alicent gives the king a stone carving of a dragon. Her true intentions are still not 100% clear to us, so we don't know if she truly likes the king or if she's just doing her dad's bidding to get closer to the Iron Throne. Shortly after, an emergency council was summoned because a letter comes from Daemon informing them that he's stolen a dragon egg, and he is the rightful heir to the throne. He claims to have taken a second wife, and as per the old Valyrian tradition, his second wife will be named Lady Mysaria. They will have a baby, and in 2 days, a party will take place. Now, interestingly enough, we see Rhaenyra in the background listening closely to what's happening. Since we're talking about dragons and not Easter eggs, the egg was taken from the dragon Dreamfire, which was the same egg chosen by Rhaenyra for her dead brother Balon, who died the same night as her mother. Now this pisses off Rhaenyra, which is pretty much all she needs to take action. Otto volunteers to go and fetch the dragon egg back because of him and Daemon's history, and young knight in shining armor Criston Cole accompanies him. As Otto and his crew make their way to Dragonstone, they confront Daemon as he's casually playing with the egg. Daemon's dragon Caraxes comes in to threaten Otto and his soldiers, basically showing them that they're clearly outmatched, but suddenly up in the sky we see Rhaenyra ride in on Syrax to even the playing field. She confronts Daemon face to face, completely ignoring Otto, and straight up tells Daemon that if he wants the throne, he should call his own niece to get it because she is in fact the next and only heir to the Iron Throne. Out of frustration and maybe begrudging respect, Daemon walks back and tosses the dragon egg towards her. During this whole confrontation, we also see Mysaria's face, who looks confused and frustrated with Daemon. As they make their way back, we find out that none of Daemon's claims of taking her as his wife and them having a baby were true. He was just doing all of this to play games with the crown and make Viserys' life living hell since he wants to be king. Another Easter egg here is the storyline with Daemon's fake wife. Kinda sorta feeds back to Tyrion Lannister and his uber complicated relationship with Shae, who was a prostitute and Tyrion's mistress. Of course, that one didn't end too well as their romance turned sour and Shae testified against Tyrion, after which he ends up strangling her to death. From one black sheep of the family to another, talk about having bad luck with the ladies. Now, in the final scenes of the episode, Viserys conquers his ongoing indecision and decides who he's gonna marry. Shocking to the characters, but not to us viewers, he chooses Alicent Hightower. Now, a few people are pretty pissed about it. This angry party includes Lord Corlys, who thought he had it in the bag with his 12-year-old daughter, and also Rhaenyra, who we see running off in tears since she just found out her best friend is now going to be her stepmom and has been keeping the fact that something was happening between her and her dad a secret all this time. Remember what I said about this biting Alicent in the ass? In the final scene, we see Corlys and Daemon talking in secret about how King Viserys has passed them both for the Iron Throne. With Corlys involved with the Crabfeeder and Daemon's strong angst against his own brother, things are starting to hit the fan for the Targaryen family. I'm particularly excited to see what Rhaenyra and Alicent's relationship will look like in the next episode and just how much animosity there is between the pair. Let me know what your favorite Easter egg of the second episode was in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll be posting Game of Thrones content every week, so do me a favor and like the video and subscribe as it really helps me out. I'll see you all in the next one.